Hi, y'all. This is Kristen Chenoweth.
Hi, I'm Gloria Stefan.
This is Sarah Bareilles.
Hi, I'm Patty Lapone.
This is Lin-Manuel Miranda. You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died. Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams, and today we have another amazing guest. She was Bombalurina in the 2016 Broadway Revival of CATS. So welcome, Mackenzie Warren, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Mike.
I am excited because I know there's a couple things that we're going to document on this podcast about your particular history with CATS that have not been shared. So we will get to that. But I always start at your CATS history at the beginning. So you got to tell me, when was the first time you saw the show? Was it a live production? Was it the movie? Where was it?
Yes. Okay. Going back in time, I definitely saw the VHS that everybody saw. I guess it was the London production, and I wasn't obsessed with it, but I definitely was like freaked out by it, but like couldn't look away. Kind of like, oh my gosh, I can't look away. I'm fascinated by this. I might have watched it maybe 2, maybe 3 times, but it wasn't one of the musicals that I was obsessed with growing up. And then I really didn't have any touch points with it at all through college, even my early days in New York, really nothing. And then one of my best friends, Kim Foray, was the original cast of the revival. So I went to opening night, sat next to her husband, and I just was like, this is the most magical thing I've ever seen. It was so fun to go, really not knowing anything about it. And it was such a huge dream come true for her. And I just fell in love with it. And also, as I was watching it, I was like, this looks so dang hard. I'm so glad I'm not up there right now. Like, yeah. I get to sit here and enjoy and watch. I truly just had a blast. And I was like, I had a very different experience I wasn't scared of it at all. Watching the revival production, I was so like, I just thought it was so beautiful and such a spectacle, and just like everybody's facilities and talent was just mind blowing. So, yeah.
Okay, so were you a dancer, and that's why you saw the VHS? Was that like part of your classes, or is it just something that just popped up? Because as a non-dancer, it never popped up in my childhood of seeing that VHS that everyone in theater has at least saw at one point in their childhood.
Right. Yes, I definitely grew up a dancer. But the movies I loved were West Side Story was my all-time favorite. And then any Fred Astaire, Fred and Ginger movies, or Singing in the Rain. I veered more towards those.
Okay.
So,
okay. I was to say, I wore out My Cousin Vinny and Tommy Boy, so very different VHSs going through my household than
very
Singing
different.
In the Rain.
I love it.
And CATS.
Yeah.
But okay, so you saw opening night of 2016.
Yes.
You did not perform though with Kim, right? Because you were because she's Demeter and you were Bombalurina.
That's right, and we did not overlap. Like
no overlap.
Her last week. So I went into the show with 2 other amazing women, and so it was myself, Samantha Sturm, and Sarah Jenkins all got to rehearse together, and we went in at the same time as Eloise, Kim, and Christine were like on their way out. So we literally missed each other by like a week.
Oh, wow.
I know.
So of everyone that you've mentioned there, Kim is the only one I've not recorded with. Everyone of that list. Everyone else has an episode. So it's been fun to talk to a lot of the 2016 cast just because it was my introduction to the show, was that production and seeing it and then seeing it a year later. So I very likely saw you in the production because I saw it a year later. But that was my first CATS introduction of anything. I mean, VHS.
Wow.
There was I knew it just as everyone knows because it's been a lot of punchline and jokes, but I knew nothing about it. And I had very similar of wow, this looks really hard. This is crazy. This is impressive. What's happening type of response. And the first time I saw it, which was 2 days, I think, before you did, because I saw the second to last preview and then had a similar thing. But then I walked away because I'm not trying to perform. But did you have a moment where you're watching this going, I should be up there with Kim side by side?
I really did not. I did not have that sense. I truly was like, I had so much fun as a spectator. And that's usually not the case. Usually as a performer, you're like piecing yourself into a show. I truly just had so much enjoyment and like just loved that these people were working their butts off for me.
So as someone who really didn't know the show as much, and you've got your friend up there, you're watching, you obviously know how this works. So what goes into it, what it takes to the skill to do that. How much story did you try to piece together in that viewing?
I'm trying to think. I mean, I definitely was really touched by it. I was really moved by, immediately by Grisabella, and just the way she was such an outcast. And quite frankly, I honestly immediately thought of people who struggle with homelessness in New York. It's so prevalent, and just how as a society, people are like, oh, they smell, I don't want to be next to them. I am too busy, I don't want to stop. That was like the strongest sense, and it really broke my heart. And so at the end, when they start coming around, I was deeply, deeply moved by that. So that was the biggest thing that I picked up on.
That's such an interesting parallel I had not really heard or thought as much about. And it is so true of like that, the tribe kind of almost, and, like the city almost deflecting and not wanting them there, and then having that turnaround point. This is not good for my last question, where I'm going to try to convince you not to pick Grisabella. But okay, I want to go back to this moment, because you're watching it, you're having this. I mean, you're obviously seeing one of your good friends. You're sitting there next to her husband.
Yes.
Is there, as you now get to this, where the process of like auditioning for the show, are you calling her and being like, "Hey, let's prep me for this. Like, I need the other half of these steps." I
sure did. When I got the audition appointment, I was like, yeah, this would be a blast to like pretend to be a cat at this audition. Let's do it. And so I called or texted Kim. I was like, I'm going to go for this. Like, how much cat do you give at the audition? Like, is it a subtle hint? Is it all in? I just was like, because she grew up just loving the musical. She had done it at a regional theater and that sort of thing. So yeah, it was super helpful. I actually saw the show twice. So I saw it opening night, and then I loved it so much that I saw it again. I
love that question. How much cat do you give? Do you go full cat in the audition or not?
Honestly, though. So yeah, it was really fun to chat with her about it and be like, okay, I'm going to go in for the show that you're currently in. And it was special to share that.
Yeah. Okay. So now you get cast. You said you joined with Sarah and Samantha.
That's right.
And it's kind of great too, because Samantha and you are going to be doing a lot together, right? You're going to be almost together at all times. So what was told to you in terms of the story, the backstory, all this information you have to take that you were given to kind of create with Samantha, especially on your own, versus like what Kim and Christine did, or like how other people have been playing it? Because you are joining partway through, and it's one of those things that's just like the next day you're both probably on, and then the other two are leaving.
It's wild. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a really special, it's like the best scenario I could have hoped for a replacement scenario, to be able to rehearse with two other people. And there were a handful of others that were also rehearsing, like kind of adjacent to us. But I feel like, yeah, it was great to have, Sam and she had done the show. So it was nice to kind of ping off of her and kind of take her lead a little bit. And so much of that is like a sisterhood on the stage. So I think it was really special that we got to rehearse together, honestly. And, it was very much, we didn't have as much maybe playtime as the original cast did, as far as like exploring their inner feline.
Yeah.
Because we're learning, okay, when you cross here, you go between this person and this person. So it was a little more planned out, I guess I'll say. But yeah, we were told, about our characters and given, the adjectives for them and just kind of just a hint of backstory. But a lot of it was for us to just kind of play with.
Okay. So that's my favorite part of this show is, what did you, like, there's obviously, you're given your 3 words, you're given a little bit. but you obviously had to create more and you have to come up with more. So did you write a full backstory for your Bombalurina?
I did. I mean, I think that some of the adjectives were generous, voluptuous, and frank were the adjectives I was given. And so I really played on the frank and just how like blunt and straightforward she was, and really kind of played with like the backstory with she and Tugger, and then Macavity as well. And just that she's like Bomb is a seasoned cat. She's seen a lot, but she didn't let maybe hardships or any kind of abuse that Macavity gave her like absolutely destroy her like it maybe did some others. And kind of like looking at Macavity like, what a big bully. Like, you're just a big bully baby. Like, come on. Whereas it really caused trauma for others like Demeter and so I feel like if anybody were to confront Macavity, maybe Bomb would have at one point, but I think there's still a healthy amount of fear just because you don't want to mess with somebody who's like, unstable like him. And then
broken every human law.
Right, exactly. Like, we don't need to confront that much. And then, just thinking through like Grisabella, like what her backstory must have been and feeling a connection to her in that way, because her, the cards she was handed were, different from what Bomb was handed. And I think there's like a hint of empathy, but I don't want to show Bomb. I didn't feel like Bomb wanted to show the other cats that she was showing empathy towards Grizz too early on.
Okay. I want to ask about a few particular relationships. So like, is Grizz, how did you view Grizz? Mom, friend, peer, potential path you could have gone down? Like, how did you think through those things?
I did. I feel like I chose to look at Grizz as a warning.
Okay.
Of not letting myself go down the dark path. And so I think in a way I was grateful for Grizz because like, man, she learned the hard lessons that maybe I didn't have to.
Okay. What about the other one? Here's the other one that I have thrown out a lot and I still don't get good answers for, is the relationship with Demeter. And there's a school of thought that thinks you're sisters. There's a school of thought that thinks you're best friends. And there's a school of thought that thinks you're lovers.
Oh, I haven't heard all of those. Definitely. I never thought of us as sisters, but I think I thought it was sisterly. That, I think there's, some shared experience, but Bomb was able to mentally handle the things they experienced maybe with Macavity. I even think there was some, maybe a scenario where like the two of them were with him together and, when things took a turn south, like I feel like Bomb definitely took Demeter under her wing, so to speak. So I think there's like a protectiveness. Yeah. For sure.
I've never thought it was like true sisters as in like relative sisters. It almost felt this is, I guess, probably a very American college version, but it felt like almost a sorority sister or something where it's like they had this moment together where they bonded and went through this thing and they're really relatives, but not in the blood sense, and went through that whole process together. So that's how I always felt. But there's a group that thinks that they're lovers, which is also a fascinating kind of piece.
Listen, I mean, that could definitely be a possibility. I just my brain didn't think of it that way, but definitely like that protective piece. Yeah, that's so fun. I love all the different theories. It's like you can really fill in so many of the blanks with cats.
There's endless. And I think that's what has made this so fun is what you all thought about on stage. Because you can do a lot of versions. You could do a night where your Macavity is a little bit more sexual and flirty together, and that would give off that vibe. And then you can do tomorrow where it's very sisterly.
Exactly.
And it would be the same show, but a twist and turn that you can do because it's not spoken. And that's what I think is really cool about the show in general.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
Who are the other relationships that you like formed and had to play heavily off of every night that were maybe less spoken, like maybe the less traditional there's obviously the Tugger and the Demeter, the Grisabella, the McCavity.
Definitely.
But what are some of the other ones that you got to have some fun with that maybe weren't immediately told to you?
Who were the other ones? Definitely everybody has a strong relationship with Deuteronomy. Just, I think he represents a lot of different things to all the cat. I don't know. For some reason, I felt something with Mephistopheles too on stage.
Okay.
Like something about the magical cat. It's like, I don't know. It's kind of secretive and kind of sexual in a way. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I mean, like cats are so sensual. So I think anything can be sexualized. But yeah, Mephistopheles, like kind of elusive, but brotherly. And I mean, yeah, we all, lean on him to kind of bring Deuteronomy back. So then it's kind of that. It's like he's solving a problem for us. And yeah, I'm trying to think about the other female cats. I mean, definitely Jelly Lorem and Jenny Anydots, because we do the fun harmonies and Jenny Anydots song.
Yeah.
I don't know. So that was fun to like play off each other for that. Like we're the mature cat.
Okay.
And we're going to do this Boyle and sister-esque, moment, which was fun.
We're going to take a quick break and then we'll be back for more of The Wrong Cat Died. Okay, I want to pivot to some stories because I know what I'm fascinated to hear is I know you have at least one wild story. So we're going to kick off with that one that I'm going to ask you about. But then I'd love to hear some memorable moments from being in this production. So the first one is, I will share this link, but you shared a story with me about how you had an interaction with a service dog in the crowd. So what happened?
Yes. What had happened was we enter, our first entrance is through the audience for most of the cats, not everyone, but like half the cast enters through the audience. And so, we're in the lobby after all the guests have been seated. We start to creep our way up the stairs, and then I make my entrance in the house left aisle. And I'm standing at the back and I'm like, what is this? I was like looking at the aisle and I was like, is that somebody's bag? Is that a purse? And usually the aisles are completely clear because the ushers know to clear it and stuff. I'm like, what is that? I'm like, no, it's moving. Okay, well, whatever, I gotta go. So here I go. So it's a tiny Pomeranian dog. It's a tiny Pomeranian service dog, which I've never seen in my life. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Okay. It's as I'm walking up behind it, it starts to walk out in front of me. It's on the leash, but still the owner isn't doing anything about it. It starts to walk in front of me and I'm like, oh my goodness, what do I do? And he's like right in the middle of the aisle and I just gently nudge him with my little foot and then carry on. And I believe one of the ushers said that he kind of trotted after me a little bit. And that's basically all that happened. It wasn't super dramatic. It just was like a funny moment. And then I went on with my show and I was like, oh, that was funny. Like a little Pomeranian got in my way. Like what a cutie. He wanted to be in the show. Like, so then I get a call, I guess from the PR team, like the next day. And they're like, I heard there was an incident at the theater last night. And I was like, oh, sure, if you want to call it that. And I explained exactly what happened, just like I did to you. And then I think that day, the Page 6 article came out with this like terrifying image of a dog snarling. And it's like, dog chases actress, off the stage or something. And that was like, wow, well, that's one way to twist it. I am so grateful they did not twist it the other way and say, actor kicks dog or something like of that nature. Like they totally could have taken it that way. And so then it totally spun out of control. And so the Page 6 article came out and then it was on Wait, Don't Tell Me the next week as like a question of like, which Cats character was chased down the aisle on Broadway last week by a dog? And then it was on, I think Jimmy Fallon joked about it on his show.
Wow.
I was like, did you hear that one of the Broadway Cats actors got chased off the stage? It truly blew up. So like for a week, people from all over the country were messaging me and they're like, oh my gosh, are you okay? And I was like, guys, I'm great.
All for like a 10-pound dog.
Yes.
Barely walking 3 feet down the aisle behind you. Is this during Green Eyes?
This is at the very top of the show. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a part where you're scaring children and jumping out at people anyways. And you're just trying to get to the stage. and a tiny little service dog comes a little bit after you, and it turned into this like attack.
Yes, exactly. I think one of the articles or something somebody said was like it got on the stage and chased her, and totally out of control. But yes, it was a good laugh, and
I should have invited the dog back for your one scene that did your production do the scene where you turn into dogs, or is that only in the older VHS version?
Yeah, the peaks and follicles. I did not get to dress up or put anything on my head.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Could have had the dog there for that. Had a cameo and been ready to go.
Fit right in.
So that's a pretty tough moment to top. But what were some other memorable like scenarios or things that like really stick out from your production that you just will never forget?
I do remember I had like a sinus infection. It was like right around Thanksgiving, and so I'm constantly managing all the fluids that come with a sinus infection. And I'm during Macavity, Demeter sings first and then Bomb. And Bomb sits on the tire for like a whole verse and a half, or however long it is. And I'm like prepping, just resting until I have to stand up and sing. And this little drip starts going down the back of my throat. And I need to cough so bad, but I didn't. I was like, I don't know if they've clicked my mic on yet. Like, I don't want to take away from Sam, her verse right here. Like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And I'm trying to like clear my throat. And literally my eye starts watering and like a tear comes down my face. And then finally I'm able to like get it down literally in the nick of time before I have to stand up and go, but Macavity's a ginger cat, and start. It was just like a terrifying moment because I'm like, what if I can't get this down? And I'm just like coughing for my first, 5 words.
Wow.
So yeah, that's just like the funny thing about being a performer is you're still dealing with bodily things where, if you're in an office job, it's like you can take a moment and cough, but when you're on a stage, you don't feel like you can do that. You have to do everything in time. Oh man. Yeah, that was scary.
Yeah. Live performances is, again, your world was so different than what most of us lived there who are not performers. To exactly your point. If I had a sinus infection, I might not even work that day.
Right.
Just take the day off, or or in this we can mute our microphones and cut this out later. Like, there's a lot of ways to handle that, but you're on stage in front of hundreds of people, if not more, and you are mic'd up. You have no idea. You have no control. You can't just like cover, was it on your head at that point? It's like in your wig. You can't cover it,
right. And
you've still got to go, and you're singing and you're dancing and you're performing. It's like a very physical and demanding thing. And yeah, I mean, you just have to keep going. And that's part of what makes theater so interesting, because it's live and you don't know what you're getting.
Absolutely.
But I think it's what makes it also wild to me that this is a profession.
I think it was Mamie. I can't even remember if I saw it happen or if like people talked about it after the fact, but I think somebody had, I don't know, or if this is a story that was told to me. Anyways, I heard that somebody on the front row had their phone lit up and was on their phone. And there's like a quick break during a memory. And she like goes to the front and swats at the phone and then backs up and then da 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 touch me.
That I hope that's true.
I know, it just like makes me so happy that as a cat you're allowed to do that because it's in character and
Yeah, it's like a cat shoving something off the table. Like you can get away with that. I think Tyler, like the Tugger character, can get away with a lot of stuff and always gets to have some fun.
Yes,
with that. So that's there. But I'd never heard that story with a Grizz, and that is great.
Yeah, it was either Mamie or another Grizz. I wish somebody could corroborate the story.
Well, if you know, I know a lot of people listen, or we can go to our encyclopedia of cats from your production of Claire. Claire Camp knows everything.
Oh, yes.
So we can always ask Claire if she remembers. Incredible. She would know. If there's anything cats related, Claire knows.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. That is. Oh, now I wish I was there for that performance, because I'm the type of person that I'm a big believer of if you have something that important that you need to be on your phone or checking, you shouldn't be at the show, and you should be like, we should be as society okay to turn ourselves off for 2.5 hours, and you get an intermission that like I mute everything, I turn everything off, I do not disturb, whatever it takes, because nothing should be that important, and if it is, then why are you there?
Right. Absolutely.
And so I'm all for that, and I'm just like, if it's such a bad. It's happening a ton right now, and it's getting really frustrating and annoying. And I saw a show recently, and someone in front of me was pulling out their phone, and I'm like, they're just texting somebody back. Like, this can't wait 30 minutes.
It's insane. And the actors can see everything because it's so pitch black in the audience. It's like, even if they're high up in the balcony, you're like, oh, somebody's on their phone in the balcony. No lie.
Yeah. I find it so disrespectful and just not needed. And
Absolutely.
It's become such a norm. And I am hoping people can respect the theater more. But I love that somebody got the opportunity because I like the shows that have some kind of like fun where they, like I saw Titanic recently, and someone walked in, a very, very drunk group of people walked in late, and whoever was doing their part, like I think the Celine stopped and said, welcome, and like kind of called them out. And I'm like, oh, they're late. But then they were being really obnoxious most of the show, and kept calling them out because they have that freedom with some of the improv. And I love that whoever did that took a little bit of that freedom of, I'm a cat, I'm going to get away with just hitting this phone. Like, let's lean into that.
Oh man. Yeah, that's the thing. You could get away with a lot on stage.
Yeah. How much liberty did you take as in a show like this where you have a little bit more freedom, because there's just not a ton of dialogue. There's not a ton. It's like, there's the dance numbers that you can't really mess with, but a lot of the rest you can kind of play around on.
Definitely. I mean, in the Jellicle Ball, there's just subtle movement when you're just slightly changing positions, but, between sections or that kind of thing where you can interact with other cats on the side. But yeah, they're definitely, it's so traffic specific. So you have to stay obviously within the traffic, but definitely like playful looks at people. And anytime you're on the side and the lights aren't on you, you can definitely, interact with the other actors. So
I love that. Okay, I want to go to some rapid fire because I think there's some fun ones here. So
great.
If you could go on for one night, any cat, whether you male, female, you could sing it, can perform it or not, who would you want to go on for one night as?
Oh, that's really tough. It would either be Skimbleshanks or Grisabella.
Okay. Two very different.
So different.
Tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think it'd be so fun for so many reasons.
Okay. You either want to dance the whole time or you want to only be on the stage for 15 minutes.
Yes.
Okay. Who are your favorite and least favorite characters?
Ooh. Like as me, Mackenzie, least favorite?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I like it more from that because I do think it's easy to skew. It might be skewed by playing Bombalurina.
That's true.
But I'm thinking more of if you were hanging out with one or you were friends with one or just one that you really enjoy, and then in the reverse, which is the one that you're like, enough.
I've always loved Tugger. I just think Tugger's hilarious and just like doesn't care, and it's so great. And just so playful. I'm trying to think of cats that I don't like. I mean, they're all just so playful. In real life, I'm not a huge cat person. I'm definitely a dog person. So like,
okay.
I could imagine. I'm trying to think who is like the meanest cat on stage, because maybe that's the one that I don't like. Like whoever hissed the most, maybe. But I don't know who that would have been.
Which is the one that if you were personality wise, you were at an event hanging out with, would you be like, all right, I need a break?
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I like Mungo Jerry and Rumple Teaser. Like maybe they'd be too like mischievous for me. I don't know. Like it's hard to even say that because
okay,
I find all of them pretty endearing. So
okay, all right, I'll accept that. Favorite song from the show?
Oh man, I do love Magical Mr. Mistopheles. I just think it's so magical. And memory.
It's a great answer.
Memory's great too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, here's my fun one. So obviously you had a terrifying interaction with the service dog. Which cat do you think would be the best service cat? As in, like, if you were personality-wise hanging out there, which cat would be hired for that role? Ideally not to chase you down the aisle.
Maybe Skimbleshanks, or who would be, I'm trying to think who would be really attentive to their owner.
I think there's one answer to this one.
Really? You have it?
Yeah, I think there's one for this. Because I think they already do it in the show.
Monkey Strap?
I think it's Joey Lorem.
Oh, yeah, that's so true.
I think they're already taking care of their service cat for Gus.
That's true. Okay, that's so true.
That was my one answer. I love
that.
But now, the reverse of that is, which one do you think is the service cat that's going to chase somebody down the aisle?
Definitely Tugger.
Tugger?
Yes.
Yeah. Tugger or Mungo Jerry Rumpelteazer are the ones absolutely. I was thinking of. Okay. All right, $1 million question. I've argued at length that I don't think it should be Grizabella, so I want to hear you, Mackenzie. Are you picking Grizz, and why? And if not, who are you picking?
I was thinking through this, and I was like, the only other cat that I think is like deserving and, you know, at that point would be Gus, the theater cat. And I just love Gus so much. And it's so fun to watch Gus like come to life during the show as he's like reminiscing. And then he's like, and now I shall show you, you know. But Grizz is it's just such a beautiful, like, redemptive arc. And that's why I was so deeply touched, as I mentioned, watching the show. That like all the cats come around, and it's kind of like they're all apologizing. Yeah, I just see such a connection with like our society today, even with somebody who we deem as untouchable. And once we kind of change our thinking and we're like, oh no, this person is just as worthy of love and respect and care. That's why I just think it's like, I'm sorry.
So you're picking Grizz.
I really.
Okay. So let me ask you my follow-up question, because I do think the societal question is an interesting way to think about it. But why immediately then murder her? Like, why can't she have a year with the family?
That's so funny. I don't know. It's so like the Heaviside Layer. I feel like this is such a like meta concept, because it's like a new life. Like, she gets to have a new life, and like the pain of this, or the pain of this season, or this life, this cat life, if you want to call it that. It's like she's exiting that season and entering a new season of like, hey, this next season, no trauma, no abuse. Like, hopefully it's like a beautiful new redemptive life in my brain.
Your view is that the 9 lives are linear, and this is now like, it's not starting over. It's not like it goes through a full life and then is reborn and it goes through a full life. Like, she's just starting that's like season 2 of Grizabella, or season 4 or 5, whatever number she's on.
Yeah, kind of. I kind of go back and forth on that. Yeah, it's interesting to think about. I think it could go a lot of different ways, but I think it's linear, a little more linear. Or my brain, I like for things to be linear.
Well, there's no right answer, because we only have one ball. There's no extra. Well, I guess there's a right answer, because this Grizabella is sacrificed every night for 40 plus years.
Yeah.
but I'm slowly trying to change that. But I do think like where it gets to me interesting is, I like the story. I like the redemption. I think your society piece is exactly right, which is we need to embrace and accept her back. But then where I go the next step is, why is that the reward? Like, why is this the next step when she could spend the year with her family? And then I go into, is next year, if redemption is the piece, is there another banished cat that's coming back next year? Is this happening every year, or does the criteria change every year? Like, who was banished last year, and did we have a redemption story, or is it just a different criteria every year?
Right. Like, you're saying, did they come back as a new baby cat and now they get to be part of the family?
Or is there one that we don't even know about that's going to come back next year because they were banished from years before too? Like, it becomes a question of, since you're only given one view into this world, is that story, is it teaching a lesson every year? Is it teaching a redemption lesson every year? And I think that is, as Old Deuteronomy has done this many times, which opens up a very bizarre serial killer story for him anyways. But as he's done this over the years, what is his criteria? Because I kind of always view this as, if there's Cats 2, how do you go? Or even if Grisabella, maybe something happened and doesn't have that, like, was he going to pick Gus?
Right.
And then if he picked Gus, which I think a lot of people have said that his choice was Gus until she came back, then that's two very different criteria for why you'd pick Gus versus her. And so that's where it's like, is he all knowing and knew she was coming back? If not, was he picking Gus? It's a lot of open-ended questions.
That's really interesting.
Did your cast think about this at all?
Well, I wasn't part of the original rehearsal process, which I think was a little bit longer than our as replacements going into the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there weren't tons of discussions around this, but I definitely pictured it in different ways. I also kind of had imagery around it about, like, you know, when somebody in our life passes away, a lot of times relationships with family members, distant family members that we've maybe lost touch with or had falling outs with, and then near the end of their life, a lot of times you'll see people like longing for that reconciliation piece. So it's almost like, I sometimes would think about it as like Grisabella is like nearing the end of her life, and she got to have that reconciliation moment.
Yes. So that's interesting, is if that she's not going to make it next year. So she won't even finish the next year. So that's why she has to go.
Yes.
And that's very different. And I think that's then becomes an interesting question of, does Gus even make it next year? And he's had that moment. And then how do you make that choice between the two? And why couldn't they both go?
Right. Yeah. Why can't they both go? I like that.
There's so many unwritten rules here that were written by one person. Very likely, or not thought about at all.
Right.
Because I don't think this question was thought about nearly in depth as I have tried to bring it to the forefront.
Well, I love that you've explored every facet of it.
That's what we're here for. Collect stories like your page 6 story and hear the true background of that. And then also understand all the relationships and then debate if I can get, although you're pushing Grizz's numbers back up, but I'm slowly getting Gus to being close to 50-50.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, he's slightly behind still. It's kind of gone, it's the two of them, and then there's like a few that pop in every once in a while. But it's pretty clearly almost a 50-50 race. With Grisabella still above.
Wow.
She's not 50% of the votes overall, though, which is my pride of that. I've either slowly influenced people to pick her less, or she should have never been picked to begin with.
Just depends how you frame it.
That's right. That's what we've been here for. Well, what else have I not asked you about Cats that we should end with here?
Oh, man. It really is a magical show. It was my Broadway debut. And then like a year or two later, I actually got to make my TV debut as a cat in an episode of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. And that was hilarious to revisit it because in the Broadway company, I was like, Bomb has this beautiful, sexy, like red costume. And then in the episode with Kimmy Schmidt, it's like the most hodgepodge outfit. I'm wearing like a vest and a hat, and the makeup is just like, not super flattering. But it was a really fun experience and, a hoot to film and revisit,
That's so fun. That episode was, as I started doing this, is one of the many where I'm like, wow, Cat's like really dug in. There's like a couple Friends episodes. There's a Family Guy episode, but that Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt one is very, very well done.
Yes. Yeah. They did a great job with it.
That's so fun.
So, can't get away from the Cats, even though, I'm not the biggest real life cat fan. But
yeah. Well, so is there a world where you try to revisit this later on? Because that's, I think, the fun part of Cats is you can do this over years with all the different characters.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would 100% want to play Grizz for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you get to play Grizz in a production that I don't influence and you get to go up the tire every day and not the version that I want to do. But that is, I hope that's part of your future.
Thanks.
I hope it's your own memory. You get to come back and get to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well, this was so fun to revisit and chat through all the different, potential avenues that things could go.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. It's been so fun.
Yes. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. And thanks everyone else for listening to this episode of The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown the catastrophe. To follow along, you could subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any of those podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at The Wrong Cat Died, or check out our website, thewrongcatdied.com.